So in the last video, we completed our query, param and body decorator. Now let us move to next concept, that is adding a service layer. So the controller is only responsible for dealing with HTTP related functionalities like reading the params, no query and body, but it will not have any business logic. Okay, so if this guy is not having any business logic, then who should have? The business logic should be dealt with a service layer. Now, what is a service layer? This is nothing but just a class that will be injected into controller, and that service will have all the relevant method that this controller needs. Okay, so let me show you how. So we have books.controller.ts. I'll add one more file, book.service.ts. Okay, and this will be export class book service, and most importantly, it will be decorated with this service decorator that will come from type di, so that we can add it in our dependency injection container, and then we can inject it into our controller. Okay, now what method it needs? It needs equivalent method for each of the HTTP handler. Get all books, right? Get book by ID, create book, update book, and delete book, right? So let us see. Now before I do that, what I will do, I will take this book constant that is currently working as our database. Okay, and I will paste it here. Okay, now this guy will deal with everything that is related to books functionality. Okay, of course this will throw error, but we will fix it. Okay, so first function is get all books, right? And what this will return? This will return books, right? This books it will simply return, right? Get book by ID. Okay, and it will take ID of type number. Okay, and return books or ID, right? And can we do some validation? So if ID is greater than books dot length, okay, throw new not found error. Okay, and I can say book not found. Okay, now the create book, right? Create book, and this will take a book of type. What will be the type of this one? The create book DTO. And what I will do? Books dot push. Okay, this book update book. Okay, so this will take one ID of type number and book of type what? We'll say update book. Okay, DTO. Now we don't have this update book DTO, right? So let us introduce. Now you might be asking, okay, so what is the difference between create book DTO and update book DTO? In our example, there is no practical difference, right? But there could be scenarios where the create entity or the create DTO and update DTO might be different, right? So for example, it's a user object, right? So say for example, we want to use the we want to set the user ID and password, right? So create book DTO will have the user ID and password field. Say for example, our business constraints tells that the user ID cannot be updated once it is created, right? So in that case, the update user DTO, it will not have the user ID field, right? But the create user had the user ID field, right? So it is always a good practice to keep your entities separate between create and update and no other functionalities based on the need, right? So here I will add a new file, and I will say update book.dto.ts, and I will for now, okay, I will copy it. Okay, I will paste it and I will rename it. Okay, so I'll say update book DTO. Now I will come here and I will update. Okay, and here also I will do the same validation. And what I can do, I can do books, okay, of ID equals to the given book, and I will return the new book. And here also I should return the book. Okay, then coming to delete book by ID, it will take ID as number. Okay, and here also we have to do this validation, right? And I will say books dot splice id and 1. So this will remove that particular given id index. Okay. Now coming to book controller. So here I will introduce the constructor. Okay. And in this constructor, what we can do? Okay. So before this, we'll say private. Okay. Book service of type book service. Okay. And from this constructor, we'll take the book service, which will be of type book service, and this dot book service equals to book service, right? Now we are following this pattern, right? We'll create the instance, and in the constructor we'll take that instance and we'll assign it, right? Now there is a shorthand for doing this, the same thing. Okay, so here I can say private book of book service, and I can mark it as read only. Okay, so this is the same thing, right? Now here I will remove all this log. Okay, here I will return, okay, this dot book service dot get all books, right? And here also what I will do, return this dot book service dot get book by id, and I'll pass the book id. Okay, similarly here also this dot book service dot create book, and I'll pass the book instance that is coming from body. Now I will remove this logic. Okay, return, okay, this dot book service update book. Okay, and the book id, and if you see here, we also have to get the body, right? And this body will be of type update book dto, right? And we will pass the book, and this should be book id, right? And here we can say updated book or new book, whatever you want to update. Use the variable name. Let me fix the spelling. Okay, and I will pass the updated value. Okay, and here also this dot book service dot delete book, and we'll pass the book id. Perfect. So we will come to our console. There are no errors. Okay, then we'll open postman and we will run everything else. Okay, so get book by id. Okay, so now here I will add a body. Okay, and if you see book id 4, price is for 258, right? So I will change it to 4, and I will update it to, I will copy. Okay, I will paste, and here I will say 300, right? So now if you see, we are getting 258. Now if I update, okay, now this is giving 300, and if I come here, see, now it is updated to 300, right? So our logic is working. Okay, so we will create a book. Okay, and what we can do, let us delete a book. So we can delete book, right? So now if you see, 1 2 3 4 5 values are coming. So now how many books are there? 1, okay, 2 and 3 and 4. So 4 books are remaining, right? So with this we have added a service layer. This service layer will in turn call the repository methods, okay, that we will see later. Now I want to introduce you to one more concept. Now we are going to write a config service. Okay, now what is the config service? So now we are hard coding the port number, right? Ideally we should read it from some kind of environment variables. Okay, now to read it from the environment variable, I can say process.env dot port, right? And of course this will work. But when you go to a real application and in production scenarios, it is not always that we are going to read from environment variables. Okay, sometimes there are secret manager service, from there we have to read, right? And there are other service from which we can read. It could be reading from a encrypted JSON file also, right? So me always hard coding the port number to get from process.env is not correct, right? So for this, I need a config service, and that config service will read that value from for me, right? When I am saying this dot config, okay, service dot get, and I want to get port, okay, and I want to pass a default value, right? Now this is the job of this config service to get the value for me. If it is getting from process.env, or if it is getting from secret manager, or it is reading some database value, it is the responsibility of this config service. Okay, of course in our example we're still going to use process.env, but this is the abstraction that we are adding, so that later we can change it to read from a database or a secret manager instead of process.env, right? So that is the whole idea. Okay, so where we will add, so we'll come to core classes, and here I want to add a new file, and I want to say config service.ts, right? And it will be export class config service. And what we have to do, we have to decorate it with the service decorator, which should come from type di, right? Then only it will be part of dependency injection and we can inject, right? Now it should have three methods. Okay, get string, okay, and it will take the key of type string and default value of type string, and it should return a string value, right? Okay, and similarly get number. Okay, so the key is of type string, okay, default value will be of type number, right? And it will return a number, right? Now what I'm doing here, see, here get config, it is supposed to get me a port number, right? And it should be of type number, right? I'm defining a explicit function that will give me a numeric value, so that I don't have to do any typecasting here. Because when you are reading value from process env or some other source, right, there is a high chance that it will be not in the desired data type, right? It will be our responsibility to convert it to the needed data type, right? So get number, of course the key is a string, right? So this will always be a string, okay, and the default value will be number in case of we are trying to read number, right? And the similar value, okay, we will have for boolean, right? So I will update. Okay, now coming to the string part, I will say const raw value equals to process.env and the key, right? So if you see here, key will be port. So what I'm doing, process.env dot port, right? If, okay, raw value equals to null, or raw value equals to undefined, then return default value. Okay, else return the raw value, right? And here, even if you don't write else, it will work, right? Because anyways we are returning this, right? So just to make it explicitly clear, I am giving the if else condition, right? Similarly get a number, right? So the raw value will still be the same, okay, and this condition will also be the same, okay. Otherwise we'll come to else block, okay, then const result equals to number of raw value, okay. Now if, okay, by any chance is nan the result, okay, what we will do, we will return the default value, okay. Otherwise we will return the result, right? Of course you can optimize this, right, the if else condition. Now for boolean, what we will do, see, this part will still remain the same. In the else part, what we can do, we can say if, okay, raw value equals to true, okay, return true, and this will be string true, right? And here if, okay, raw value equals to false, false, okay, return false, okay. Otherwise return boolean of raw value, right? Now coming to our app.ts. Okay, so this will be get number, right? Now this config service doesn't exist, right? So we will make it exist. So we already have this book controller, anyways we are not using it, right? So for now let it be there. Okay, I'll add a comma. I'll say private read only. Okay, config service, and this will be of type config service, right? Now I'll save this one, and let us see there are no errors. Okay, we'll come to console, and the server is running. Okay, now we will come to our folder structure, our folder tree. Okay, and here I will add a new file, and I'll call it as .env. Okay, and I will say port equals to say 7000 for now. Okay, now coming to config service, is this going to work? No. Okay, why not? Because we have to import, okay, .env from .env, okay, and .env dot config, right? So we have to add this config method, right? So now it will start reading from this port, this file. Okay, so I will come to terminal. Okay, and I will cut this one, cancel this one. Okay, and I will say clear, and before clear, if you see, it has already picked up the new server port, right? So I'll say clear, and I'll say npm run dev. Now if you see, it is running on port 7000, right? So that means our config service is able to pick the config from environment variables, right? So I will change it to 8000, change it to back to 8000. Okay, and I will do a restart. Okay, so now it is again running on port 8000, and if I send a request, right, it will work. Okay, maybe another book. Okay, code of shadows, right? So we are getting the book value back. So our server is running properly. And where we are going to use, of course we are using it to read the and port number. Later we are going to use this config service to read the database connection related information, right? Host, username, password, database port, and everything, right? And we can use it in any other place from where we are supposed to read environment variables, right? So this is it for this video. I hope you like this video. Give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next video.